What are the hidden costs when selling your home? You're listening to Home Seller's Advantage. I'm your host, Aaron Zapata.
And I'm your other host, Todd Anderson. We are the Bald Brothers team at Impact Realty Group with Real Broker, and we are here to give you the Home Seller's Advantage.
You can find us online at www.baldbrothers.tv. Again, that's baldbrothers.tv.
Or you can call us at 833-305-BALD. That's 833-305-2253.
Well, Todd, I think this is one that we probably should have covered a long time ago. Before we talk about that, I'm excited that we have matching stands for our microphones.
Yeah, this is what people really want to know. They want to know about the decor.
They do. You know, people watching
if you're listening, you have no idea what we're talking about.
If you're a regular listener, you know that just recently Todd got new headphones, which I was super excited about. Mm-hmm. And now I was gifted this box. This box that I've been having for probably 8 months ago.
It was a marketing box.
It was a marketing box.
And
they forgot, very nice one. They
forgot they sent it to you already, so they sent another marketing piece.
Yes.
And so now I've got a matching box. You know, Aaron really likes that we match. Before you know it, we're going to be wearing matching clothes.
You know, we are both bald. And for a video show that's on YouTube, I thought, you know, it is probably pretty good if we're matching. But no, we're not going to wear the same clothes, although we have matching polos.
We do.
So if we wear those on the same day, you'll hear about it.
Get matching tattoos.
Yeah,
2 50-year-old guys getting their first tattoos.
Yeah, not going to happen here.
No.
Sorry, no, not going to happen. So we've got an interesting topic today, and let's just be honest. If you're not selling your home, you don't need to watch anymore.
Or listen.
Yeah. Because we're going to talk about the cost of selling your home. And this really originated in a great conversation I had with a potential seller. Mm-hmm. And we sent him a net sheet.
Yep.
Now, this is not...
What is a net sheet,
What
Aaron?
is a net sheet?
Let's define what a net sheet is.
Net sheet. It is a sheet that is made out of a net.
That would be one definition. Another definition would be a sheet that shows the total price that the home is sold for, but really it is exactly what it's saying. It's net. It's going to show the seller what the net proceeds are after all expenses have been paid out.
Yeah, it's also called the estimated closing statement for the seller. And your agent should be able to present you with an estimated net sheet. Mm-hmm. It's not required. It is recommended that you see it.
Yep.
So that you know what all the costs are. And like I was saying, this conversation started, this whole idea started because today I had a great conversation with a potential seller, and we provided him a net sheet from an escrow company, from Beacon Escrow, and he was just asking about the different fees. Mm-hmm. He has not sold a home in over 20 years, and the values of homes have gone way up, and so we had just a great conversation about the different fees. And so we thought we'd share that with you, our audience, because we want to make sure that you are making informed and intelligent decisions so that you can make great decisions.
That's right.
When it comes to real estate.
Yeah. And I think, you know, let's say the one fee we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about, because we've done several episodes talking about that, and that is commission.
Right.
You know, that's the obvious one. You've got the listing agent commission, what's called the selling agent, which for those of you out there, you probably would just call it the buyer's agent commission. We've done several episodes. We talked about that. So that's a given. That one is an obvious one. But when you look at these net sheets, there's a lot of smaller fees that go into selling a home. And the majority of those they just go along with the program. There's not a whole lot you can do. There's really little negotiating that can be done when it comes to a lot of these fees. But let's go ahead and go through just a few of what those are.
Yeah, and if you want to comment below, if you're watching this on YouTube and you comment net sheet, we will reach out to you and ask for your email address so that you can go ahead and send that. We can send that to you.
Yeah, we'll send you a
redacted form.
A redacted version.
It's not going to have the address, but this is pretty accurate for most homes in Orange County. And we're not going to go over specific numbers, but we're going to tell you what the different buckets are of costs, and then kind of talk about why those costs are there, and then also talk about how they're charged to buyers and sellers. Okay. So when you're looking at a net sheet, the first thing that you see is the proration of property taxes.
That's right.
And that's more difficult to calculate than you'd think.
Oh, yeah.
You would think that, okay, my property taxes are $12,000 a year. And if I sell on June 1st, halfway through June 30th or July 1st, halfway through the year, that means that I will have paid $6,000 and then I will not owe the rest. Well, that is true because it's prorated on a daily basis. However, when you get your property tax bill and then you pay it, you're paying a little bit that's due from the past and a little bit's due in the future.
That's right.
And so the escrow company needs to pick a closing date, look at your property tax bill, and then they will put together the math to tell you exactly if you get a credit or if you're going to owe.
Yes, and that's an important point. There may be a credit, there may be something that you owe, and that will all be included with the transaction. That all runs through escrow. And Aaron said something else that's very, very important to know. It's on the actual date of the close of escrow. And so that number will likely change as if you're going to be selling your home and you have a net sheet, it's just estimated. But as we get closer to finalizing what that closing date is, we'll have more clear figures on what that is. So that's the first one, is the proration of your property taxes.
Yeah, and this is based on your current property taxes.
Yes.
So you have a property tax bill, we get a copy of that, escrow calculates the proration, and then that shows up on your net sheet. In the one we're looking at, it happens to be a credit because of the date in which we selected to create this net sheet.
Yeah.
So it's not a cost. In this case, it's a credit back.
Yeah. So you'll have two columns. You'll have a debits column and a credits column.
Yeah. So that's prorations adjustments. And then commissions, which we already talked about, come next. And then the next thing is title charges.
Yes.
And we could have an entire episode with a title insurer and a title rep.
Yeah, and I think
what that is.
I think probably for a future episode we should have a guest on. Probably someone from we've got a few different title companies that we work with, but we can have a guest on and talk about that process. But
let's bring the bald guy.
There we go. You just talk to we'll have 3 bald heads in one room.
That's right. And so what a title policy is it is an insurance policy that is provided by a title company that ensures that when you transfer your property from your name into the buyer's name, that is a clear and clean and title policy, meaning nobody else can make claims or nobody else is going to come out of the woodworks and say, hey, you owed me this or that or whatever.
There's a lien. I had a lien on your property. Well,
right.
If that happens, now a title company is going to go through and make sure it is clean.
Yes.
But that insurance policy guarantees that, hey, if they haven't done their due diligence to really find that and clear that out, well, then it's up to them to take care of it.
Right.
You the buyer, you the seller are paying for this so that the buyer can have clear title.
Right. And
so this is a charge. This automatically goes with it, and this is relegated to the price of the property.
It is.
So there's a ratio there. So that number is constantly changing depending on the sales price of the home.
Yeah, it's directly attributed to the sales price. It is paid for by the seller. There is a buyer side title policy that if they have a lender, they're required typically to purchase, and that covers the lender's interest because think about it. You sell a property, and out of the woodworks after the close of escrow, somebody says, wait a minute, that wasn't your home to sell. That was somebody else's home. And that person comes out of the work and makes that claim. Like, it can get real messy real fast.
Yeah.
And the lender who's just lent $1 million on this property, they need to be covered too. So there's a buyer side policy that can be attached to the seller side that doesn't get charged to the seller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And these seem like far-fetched situations, but they really are not.
Yeah.
The reason this exists is these sorts of things happen. And we've actually, on previous episodes, shared a couple different stories where there have been title disasters.
Yeah.
So at any rate, so that's title. Yeah. Now, with the title charges, well, do you want to go into the next ones? These are all kind of fall into the category of
they're all under title charges and the reason they're under title charges is because, again, the title company has to make sure that everything is followed appropriately. So they're also going to, under this section, make sure that the county transfer taxes are paid.
Yep.
And every county charges a tax to stamp that document to process the change from one owner to the other. That's called a county transfer tax.
Yeah.
And that is also a percentage of the sales price.
Yep.
So that can run anywhere from $700 to $3,000 depending on the purchase price of the home.
Yeah. So in this category, these are two of the larger ticket items that will be involved with the net sheet or the closing statement.
And then there's some smaller fees that are charged by the title company called a sub-escrow fee, a recording fee where they send the person down to record the document, messenger fees for documents going back and forth, and then a couple miscellaneous fees typically here and there. But those are all part of the title.
These are all small charges. We call them nickel and dime charges, right?
They do, and we do. And the thing to also think here about the title policies is that it's an insurance product, and insurance companies are regulated by the California Department of Insurance.
Yes.
And so all the insurance companies typically have to charge the same amount. So you don't see a lot of competition between title companies where they can say, hey, I can give you a discount, unless, so if you want to go with the top reputable firms, you're going to be paying for a really good policy with great backing. Yeah,
and that's a question that we get. Hey, can you get some sort of discount on title? No, you really can't, because there is that heavy level of regulation there.
That's right.
So
that's the title charges. The next one
is the escrow fees. So you've got we've got kind of these buckets, and the first bucket is taxes.
Yeah.
Second bucket is title fees. Third bucket is escrow fees.
Now we have to clarify here, because if you're in Northern California, oftentimes title and escrow fees are in the same bucket.
That's right.
And so the process of escrow is completed by the title company. They're very rarely separated into two buckets, but in Southern California, we have two buckets.
Yeah, and that's not just Northern California. Other states do operate in the same manner. So I should have specified. This is for Southern California, but
we're specifying.
We're
now,
specifying now.
But
good. That's very. So if you're listening from out of state, that also might apply to you, where title and escrow are kind of in the same category.
Yes, and we're not an attorney closing state, so we don't have an attorney fee. And oftentimes attorneys do the escrow. So definitely check with your local realtor if you're out of California, because you're going to have a couple of different buckets.
Yep.
So the escrow bucket.
Yep.
You've got the escrow fee, which is also attached to, and it's a percentage based on the total sales price. Then there's wiring charges, messenger fees there. There is a tax processing fee because there's some documents that have to be submitted to the IRS. And then there's some archival fees and some small fees, but those are that's another number there that you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Escrow charges.
Yeah.
So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple. Now,
simple to understand. That is a hard job.
It is not an easy job. I would not want to. And hats off to Beacon Escrow. They do a good job. I would not want to work in the field of escrow. It's a lot of paperwork and making sure, and there's regulations involved in it. And so and what is escrow? Escrow is a third party to the transaction. So they are not on the side of the buyer or the seller. They are a third party that they manage the entire transaction. They don't do anything without instructions to do so, and mutually agreed upon
mutual instructions from both parties. So the seller can't say, hey, I want this done, and it gets done.
Yeah.
If it's a transactional change, both parties have to agree.
Yeah.
Sales price amendments, credits, whatever it is that comes up in the process of a transaction, everybody has to agree to it.
Yeah. So if you as a seller are looking at that saying, why am I paying so much for escrow? Well, escrow does a lot of work and is crucial to the transaction process.
There's a lot of things they do. They're the ones that they clear all the items that show up on the title report. So if you have liens or you refinanced 8 years ago and it didn't clear title, and it still shows up as a loan, which often happens, they have to get clearance for that. They have to review all the trust documents. They have to coordinate with the title company immensely.
So there you get back to the title company. Yeah. You're paying the title company for the insurance product, but escrow is the one that's working with title to make, because title's not going to insure it if they see that there's what we call a cloud on title. If there's an issue with the title, they're not going to insure it. But the title company is not also going to fix it. It's not their job to fix it.
Yeah.
It's others people's job to provide a clear title, to remove that cloud so that they can provide clear title.
Right.
So escrow is very crucial to this process.
Let me talk about a couple more things with escrow because this is a big deal. They also coordinate with the seller to get all the legal documents necessary. They then coordinate with the buyer to get all of their legal documents necessary. They also coordinate with the mortgage company to make sure that all the documents that they need in order to create and deliver loan documents are done properly.
Yeah.
And then they coordinate with all the agents and the termite company and anybody else involved. Is they're kind of the center of the spoke and the wheel that brings them all together so that property can transfer.
That's a better analogy than what I was going to say. I was going to say they're like a giant octopus with multiple arms, but you know what? That's a foreboding image. The spokes in the wheel. Yeah, the center of the wheel. That's a better imagery, not an octopus.
So Escrow, worth their weight in gold. They do a great job. And the next thing that we have, believe it or not, it kind of goes back to, in our net sheet here, it goes back to property taxes. Because depending on when you close, you might have paid some, but still more are due. And so these are kind of offsetting things. But like in ours, there is an actual charge for prorated property taxes in addition to the credit.
Yeah.
So they're kind of offsetting. But it is a fee. Like if you close...
And you might say, well, why don't you just even it all out and just give one number? Well, it doesn't work that way. You've got to show your work. Remember back in school when you did long division? You got to show your work.
But I got the right answer. No.
You got to show your work.
You got it wrong.
So it's all laid out there in the net sheet.
Yeah. So a couple of other things that are completely separate and apart from this net sheet that we're looking at. But if you have an HOA, a homeowners association, you're going to have to pay dues to the HOA to produce documentation. So the CC&Rs, the current budget, the current financials, all the most recent minutes, you're going to have to pay that fee. Then when they transfer the property from the seller to the buyer, they're going to charge a transfer fee. And so in that case, that may be anywhere from $700 to $1,200 combined for all of those different reports.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty significant fee.
Yeah, and part of that is actually the seller's responsibility to pay before escrow. So escrow, oftentimes all of this is handled through escrow, but there is the document preparation that HOAs have to do, and that's actually paid out of pocket from the sellers.
Right.
It's not run through escrow.
Right.
So that's another little aside to be aware of.
If you live in a newer community, there might be a community enhancement fee that is charged to sellers. Usually it's 1/4%, meaning that this goes back to a trust that is supposed to be on, accumulating money to do the work of the community. So these large planned communities, we see them locally here in Ontario. We see them in Chino, as well as a bunch of other ones where they have a community enhancement fee. And that fee has to be paid over to the trust, and that trust maintains the community from that money. Yeah. That is dependent on your property.
Yep.
The other item here that is on our list that is completely negotiable is termite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if you're working with us, oftentimes what we'll do, even before you list the house, is we'll get a termite report done. Typically that's about $100 or so, but we'll get a termite report on your house just so that we can know what the termite cost, what the cost would be to do the termite work. It's called Section 1 termite clearance. But the reason for that is because quite often, and normally when it's a buyer's market, the seller will pay for that, but not always. So we want to know, but that's one of those things that would be in a net sheet that is if we're preparing one ahead of time, it's kind of a floating number there because we don't know for certain if the seller is going to pay for it, but we like to include that in the net sheet because we want to make sure everything's in there that's possible. So and termite repairs, it can be just a few $100, it could be several $1,000s. It just depends. Yeah.
And then the last one here that we're going to go over today, based on this net sheet and the scenarios that we see most often, is the home warranty. Yeah. And if the seller is offering to pay the home warranty, you will see that as part of a debit against your sales price. Yeah. And they will pay that through escrow. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And there's NHD. I don't think we covered NHD.
That's $100.
It's $100, but it's one of those really small fees. When you see the net sheet, you see all these things. I talked about the buckets. You got the taxes, you've got title, you've got escrow, but then you've got these additional kind of a hodgepodge bucket of fees depending on the transaction. If there's HOA, that's another bucket there, and then of course there's the floating numbers, the termite, and Yeah, so that's basically it. There's a lot of different things in there, and oftentimes the question is, why do I have to pay all of this? Well, it's the process that we go through when it comes to selling and buying a property.
Yeah. And there is a division of these fees. We told you we would talk about who pays for what.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the fees that are attributed to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
These typically in our escrow, there's what's called customary fees.
Mm-hmm.
Who pays for what?
Mm-hmm.
And again, this varies by area, but here in Southern California, the seller pays their portion of escrow fees. The buyer is also paying an escrow fee based on the sales price.
Yes.
They have different sub fees within the escrow department during the escrow fees, because if there's a loan, then there's a loan tie-in fee. If there's a document preparation for the loan documents, there's all these extra fees that are based on specifically the work that has to be done.
Yeah. This episode, we're focusing on the sellers, but Aaron's very correct. The buyers have their own closing statements.
Right. And that's the question we get is, wait a minute, I'm paying this. Is the buyer paying? I thought the buyer was paying half of this. And that is your half.
Yeah.
That is your half. Okay. The buyer's paying an additional fee somewhere else, and typically a little different on the sub fees within that grouping. So these are your customary. Your title has a seller's policy, and we already mentioned the buyer side of the buyer policy to cover the lender. The buyer, if they end up paying for termite, that'll go from the seller side to the buyer side. The taxes are prorated, so these are the amounts that you owe. The HOA dues are prorated to the closing date, and the doc preparation fees are your responsibility as the seller, because you're responsible for producing those documents to the buyer. The thing that we don't see on here, because it's not a seller fee, is the buyer's home inspection. So that's a buyer fee.
Yep.
That's not on here. And so we hope this helps you in looking at the different kind of fees that are involved in selling your home. And I just want to go over them. There are 9 fees that we went through right here.
Is it 9? Okay.
It's
I
9.
wasn't counting.
Yeah. No, I decided to count.
Oh, you'd count it. Okay.
Yeah, look, I wrote the scribble here on our notes. We have the prorated taxes. We have commissions. We have title fees.
Yep.
We have escrow fees. Then we have HOA
fees. Yep.
community enhancement funds, termite, home warranty, and number 9, NHD.
NHD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Todd, what if some work is done in the home and we have to put in a septic tank?
We just dealt with that.
And they want to bill escrow. Can they bill escrow?
Yes, they can.
Yes.
It depends on whether the vendor is willing to wait for payment. But yes, if things need to be paid out of escrow, remember that you don't just escrow operates on instruction.
Yes.
And so it needs to be approved. But yes, something can be billed through escrow, because ultimately the seller is going to get that closing statement. They sign off on that, and that closing statement will include additional fees, such as the billing for putting in a septic tank, or whatever other work was done. So that's and there have been times where, even not often, but oftentimes you and I have covered certain expenses for clients, and we ourselves bill to get reimbursed for some of those expenses.
So that's the hidden selling fees.
Yep.
They're not hidden anymore.
Not hidden anymore. We have revealed it to you.
That's right. And if you would like
a magician reveals his secrets.
If you would like a sample net sheet with redacted information, we're happy to provide you one. If you are thinking about selling and we can get your address and you want us to work with you, we will request one specifically for your home based on a projected closing date. And the escrow officer puts all the numbers together that are specific to your home. If you have a loan on the property, that also gets shown up on the net sheet as a reduction from your equity.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but that's a kind of a given, right?
It is. And so that's not a hidden cost.
It's not a hidden cost. You know that you owe.
Exactly. You owe your loan.
the bank for
so, you're not going to be surprised when the bank says you owe them $480,000 or, $280. You're not going to be surprised. So that's not a net sheet amount that we want to talk about today, because that completely changes. And if you have no loan, it doesn't show up there. Yep. So it is what it is. All right. Any other thoughts that we should consider?
I think that's it. I think that's a lot to digest for today.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's going to be it's one of the most popular episodes ever.
Oh,
Everybody wants to know the hidden fees of selling your home.
Yeah. Everybody's going to go watch it.
It's going to be a best of.
Everybody's going to share it. They're going to listen to it. They're going to rewind, and they're going to watch it again because it's so invigorating.
But hey, if you do want to see a sample of what we've just talked about, as Aaron already mentioned, make a comment. If you're on YouTube, make a comment, but you can also go to our website.
Yes.
And you can reach out to us there, request a sample net sheet. We'd be happy to send you a redacted one and to give you more information.
Excellent. Todd, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Aaron, for being here as well.
And for our listening audience, we want to thank you for tuning in. And we hope that these shows are valuable to you, that you learn a lot, and that you come back again for the next one. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to the Home Seller's Advantage. The Bald Brothers team is a licensed DBA of Real Broker, licensed by the California Department of Real Estate, number 02022-092. Again, we do not give any real estate, legal, or financial advice. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can call us at 833-305-BALD, or you can reach us online at baldbrothers.tv. Equal housing opportunity.